First few laps, the first thing that came to mind was the motor. I expected it to be strong off the bottom, but I didn't expect it to have the top end that it had, and I kind of explained it before as almost feeling like an automatic, where it's almost like you don't need to change gears. It's got that much bottom end that as you roll it on, it pulls off the bottom and then it just keeps revving to the moon. And it's quite incredible. So when you're out there on the track, you can either lug it around in a taller gear, or you can choose to use a lower gear and just let it rev to the moon. So super impressive motor was my main first impression. When it comes to chassis and how the bike feels out there on the track, forgetting about the motor for a second, it's almost like they've completely turned the bike on its head from 22. It's the opposite. It's almost literally polar opposite. The old bike was super stable but felt heavy and bulky and kind of hard to tip into corners, where this new one feels light, flickable, it feels super agile. And I mean, literally, the moment you try to turn it, it starts turning for you. The old one, the front seemed to want to push in the front end, whereas this one just turns on a dime. It's quite amazing the difference between the two. A little bit of playing around with clickers and suspension. We'll get it fine-tuned a little bit more, but there was one stage out there where I found that it was almost too agile, if that's even possible. It almost got to the point of feeling a little twitchy in certain areas, but you could fine-tune that out with a couple of clicks here and there, like I mentioned. But you couldn't really get more of an opposite feeling bike from a chassis, suspension and handling wise from the 22 to the new 23, and it's definitely a big tick and step forward in the right direction for sure. I did have a chance to play around with the mapping a little bit, not as much as I would have liked to, but the main thing that I found is, and during the presentation last night, we got told about this map that had been designed by Travis Preston and was supposedly a big improvement, would help quite a bit out there on the track. And I tested it back to back with the standard map. I'm a huge fan of big horsepower on a 450, and that's why I love the Yamaha motor so much. I found that this particular map smoothed it right out, and it had a tiny little bit of traction control put into this map. And for me, I could only do about half a lap before I wanted to go back to the standard map, which was just so strong. It was mind-blowingly strong, but not in a bad way that it would want to light up. You could either lug a taller gear or rev a lower gear. It gave you the choice of the two. So I must say, I wasn't a huge fan of that particular map, but I can't speak highly enough of the standard map. It was mind-blowing how good it was. Yeah, as a bit of a summary, I would say that 99% of what Yamaha have done have been a step in the right direction and way better than the previous model. I've always loved the Yamaha motor over the last few years, but I've been a little bit critical of its handling, its chassis, and feeling a little bit heavy and bulky, particularly in corners. It does feel stable, the old model, the 22, the 21. However, the new 23, it's agile, it's so light, easy to throw around. You can literally go from one line to another at the drop of a hat. You can change your mind on the fly and hop from one side of the track to the other, and it'll do it for you. It's quite amazing. The motor is the biggest step forwards though. I don't think I've ever come across a 450 motor that has so much bottom but then also flows into the top end as well. It's quite incredible how they've done it. And also, they've seemed to have really minimised the engine braking, which a lot of people commented on today. It was one of the first things that I noticed. So, you know, a little bit of a twitchy characteristic in a couple of parts of the track that I would like to tune out of the bike a bit is the only thing that I could literally pick with this bike. Other than that, there's a bunch of ticks from my side of things for sure.